Okay, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah. Al-Alamin. Rahman ar-Rahim. Maliki yawmiddin. Iyaka na'budu wa iyaka nasta'in. Ihdina as-sirata al-mustaqim. Sirata al-ladhina an'amta alayhim. Ghayril maghdubi alayhim wad-dallin. As Sufis, and these sessions are going to be about Sufism. We always begin with the name of Allah. So, sorry for the atheists, the agnostics, the non-believing Buddhists. If that offends you, well, you're free to go. But otherwise, everyone is welcome. Uh, everyone but, we will state the case right away, everyone but Wahhabi Salafis and extreme woke people. They're not welcome. I don't want to get into debates with either of those forms of foolishness.
Extreme what?
Extreme woke.
Woke?
Yeah, if you don't know woke, we'll do a talk on woke at one point. You have to know woke. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the opposite of woke. If you need to know woke, and I feel free to say that on this, if you need to know a definition of woke, open up one of your computer screens and check out a speech by Justin Trudeau. Trudeau has now become the worldwide definition of woke. All the nations of the world are now commenting and denouncing Canadian woke because it's the most extreme form, worse than the American woke, right, at this point in time. Yeah. The Americans didn't arrest the truckers and close their bank accounts and just shut them out completely, the people who were protesting in the COVID time. So we have this is our second great badge of honor, being the most woke country now in the world. The first badge of honor is we had the first ever, we're going outside of the realm of Sufism temporarily, we have the first ever sealed, recycled air building in the world, Place Ville Marie. We have the dishonor of being the first architectural structure that was sealed and recycled. It was part of, and you'll see where this is leading, it was part of a projet pilote, a pilot project to test it out, whether this formula worked. It failed, and then it became distributed throughout the entire world, despite the failure. So this is the dishonesty of the intellectuals, whether it's administrative intellectuals or architectural intellectuals, you know. So that's a second dishonor. Aside from that, since we're broadcasting from Canada, I can make a few comments. It's my own country. But several years ago, I went to a meeting with a birthday party of a well-known intellectual. I won't name her, but there were a bunch of intellectuals from McGill. And usually I don't pay much attention to what they say because it's all mine productions. But one of the ladies in the group says, Canada does something better than any other country. And no, it's not growing forests or dredging water. She said, it's branding. Canada has branded itself as this humane, loving, compassionate country, and most of that is untrue. We're taking in all the Syrian refugees that are in trouble. Well, Turkey takes in 1.5 million. Canada reduces it to 25,000, and there are 300, 400,000 applying. And if you want to bring them in, because I looked into it for a friend, you have to put down $40,000 Canadian for their first year here. That's compassionate Canada. And when I said to the NDP representative in my area, it looks like they're trying to block these people, not welcome these people, she said, yeah, you're more or less right. Okay, but Canada advertises this great country of immigration and generosity. Yeah, right. Okay, we're not doing politics today. We'll do it another time. The topic of today is authenticity. Okay. Very important topic. And a topic that Muslims, you won't hear very much about this topic. in Muslim communities at all. Despite the fact that they will praise and glorify one of our great personalities, Abu Bakr Siddiq, and you could translate Siddiq as the authentic one, the truthful one, the one with candor, according to the Hans Baer dictionary, but the Muslims don't talk about that. They talk about Bir Walidain, being filial piety. They talk about Rahim Wasila, keeping with your extended family. They talk about adab. They have all kinds of subjects, and good subjects also. But they almost never talk about authenticity. Why? Because their cultures are generally generating inauthentic people. Okay. Why are they inauthentic? Because the people are worried more about what the people around them, their relatives and their friends, are going to say than they're worried about what they know is the truth within them. So that's a formula for generating inauthenticity, and you'll find it in all the ethnic cultures. Okay, now, obviously, when I was thinking about this subject, I was realizing, boy, this subject goes way back in my own personal history. No wonder this subject is what we start with, is dear to me. I have one of my first childhood memories. I'm sitting in the living room floor with the old R.C. Victor record players. This was before your time, before any of you guys' time. It was a record player that you had to wind up, okay, to give it the power. We didn't even have batteries then for it. You had to wind it up, it gave it power, and then it would go through one short song. And the song I wanted my parents to play, or I played, over and over and over and over again, Allahu Akbar, was, I just want to be me. I just want to be me. Now, I don't know what I was reacting to. I can develop a lot of psychoanalytic theories. I didn't have particularly ethnic type parents who told me you have to do this and don't do that and do this and don't do that. I didn't have that kind of upbringing, which is why authenticity comes to me relatively easily. I don't have anyone to answer to. My parents would not say, they probably should have said more, don't do this or this is bad. They never said, what will the neighbors think? What will the other family members think if you do this? Never, we were told that. Alhamdulillah for them. But in most ethnic communities, everyone is looking over their shoulder to see what are the neighbors saying, what are the other family members saying. This is not the way to truth. What many Muslims don't realize, because they don't reflect on our origins, is that all of the Sahabas were by definition revolutionaries. Because the social consensus then was the Quraysh, the idols, all of the values that they had from their fathers and their forefathers. So they all had to react against the social conditioning of the time. Now Muslims set themselves up in society, and everyone follows the rules of their own Muslim society without questioning it. Many of them are good rules. We see the Muslims now standing up about the transgender issue. This is good. This is part of the good rules. But there are a lot of other rules that are not such good rules. For example, we could talk about a number of them, but Bir Walidain is fine. Bir Walidain is translated as filial piety. It's a little bit, it means having the proper respect for the parents, which is fine. But what happens if you have foolish parents? And there are many of those around. What happens if your parents are telling you over and over again the wrong things? What happens if your parents, and I can talk from not my own experience, but clients, what happens if your parents try to hook you up to marry someone who's completely unsuited to you and who everyone else around knows has a bad personality, but your parents are insisting? that this is a good idea, because they know better than you, because you're 18 and they're 40, so they know better than you. But some 40-year-olds, maybe you met them, can be quite foolish. Yes. Some 80-year-olds can be quite foolish, you know. So there's no guarantee. So we pray for wise, discerning parents, but they're not that common a commodity. Okay, authenticity. Okay, so where I always felt that throughout my life, but it became clear when I started studying the third wave of psychology. Okay, most people know the first wave was psychoanalysis, the second wave was behavior therapy, and the third wave was, anyone want to try it?
Mindfulness.
What?
Mindfulness.
That's maybe the fourth wave or the fifth wave.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. The third, what?
Cognitive?
That's the fourth and fifth wave, and cognitive is associated with behavioral usually. So the third wave of psychology, I was caught right in the middle of that wave, was called humanistic psychology. Okay, and does anyone know any of the? And they emphasized a lot authenticity. You know, when Fritz Perls would, who's the Gestalt therapist, he would often bring people back to their inauthenticity.
Oh.
Yeah, he was good at it. The real psychoanalysts, they catch people in their personal hypocrisies, you know. So one time I remember watching a tape, he was working with a woman, and she didn't like what he was asking her to do to uncover some of her neuroses or whatever. And so she started crying in the middle of it, and Pearls looked at the rest of the group and he said, "Tears are a woman's second best weapon." Now I'm going to get flack from the feminists. Tears are a woman's second best weapon. I can't avoid controversy completely. Tears are a woman's second best weapon. So someone asked him, "And what is the best?" And he said, "Cooking." Most modern cynics would probably say sex, but he said cooking. So what he was trying to underline, that these are called in English crocodile tears. She was using the crying to avoid looking at herself. Okay, so
we have the same word in Farsi.
Yeah.
Yeah, we say crocodile tears too.
Crocodile tears, yeah.
Word by word.
They're manipulative tears. They aren't real tears. Okay. So anyone know any names of people in? And by the way, any of these talks are a door. Okay. Sheikh Nazim used to say, we are talking, but there are oceans in this talk. So the door is to research after, to look into these subjects and see if you can learn more. Does anyone know? Maybe Imran will know. Do you know any names of people associated with humanistic psychology?
Is Rogers one?
Rogers is one. Yeah. Did you learn that in school, or you had to learn that yourself?
No, I learned that myself.
You learned that yourself. Okay. So British schools are as bad as the schools in Canada.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Any other names that come to mind? Actually, we covered one of them in our interactive seminar.
It's one of Anna something? No.
Maslow.
Oh.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
the classic
yeah.
one.
Yeah.
This is a big one.
Yeah. They teach Maslow, but still not in public schools. You have to go to university and do psychology, I think, unless they've changed the curriculum. But Maslow, what people liked is his hierarchy of needs. And there's truth. And it's relevant. You know, the hierarchy of needs, we covered this in the interactive seminar. You start from the most basic need of security and food, and then procreation, and then social needs. And the highest level of need is, you're on to self, not self-esteem.
Self-actualization.
Self-actualization. That was Maslow's highest goal. And he was onto something. But in order to get to self-actualization, you have to go back to authenticity. You'll never actualize yourself if you don't know who you are and you don't know what you believe in and you haven't worked at expressing that belief. Growth and self-actualization require a willingness to take risks and face challenges. Growth and self-actualization require a commitment to... So often in this context, you're going to have to oppose some family pressures if you want to become self-actualized and you want to be authentic. I've told this story before, but I think it's worth repeating here since we're recording it. And of course, we won't name names, and I don't think anyone will realize what exactly this is referring to. But when I spent time at Sheikh Nou's Zawiya in Jordan, there was a man who was one of the finest munshids. Munshid is someone who sings nasheed. He sings poems of praise of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and of Allah. Beautiful voice. Everyone loved him. But he would only come from time to time. So one time he came to see me and he said, "You're a psychiatrist?" I said, "Yes." He said, "I'm depressed." And we talked a little bit and I said, "I know what your depression is about." He said, "What?" I said, You're a slave to the will of your father, not the real father." Because his father had a business and he forced him to work on days when we were doing our dhikr, our hadrat. And he didn't have the will to oppose. So I said, "Tell your father that you'll work those 3 hours another time during the week." He said he wouldn't accept anything that I said. Have to follow my father. Okay. So this is where the family environment can end up leading to all kinds of things, but leading to inauthenticity and leading to non-self-actualization and leading to non-spiritual development.
Most of the Sahabas, they had to go against their family.
Yeah, a lot of the Sahaba, some of them lost their wives, some of them lost the rest of their families because they were renounced. Yes, they were not like contemporary Muslims. They heard the truth, and this is what authenticity is all about, by the way. You have to hear the truth, whether the truth is about an inner thing or an outer thing, and then you have to hear and obey. You have to go with the truth, not with the falsehood. A long time ago, I had a client, no one would know, I wouldn't even know who he is now, who came to see me for a while. He was doing really well in therapy. Maybe some people can relate to this. He was doing really well in therapy, and then he stopped. He said, "I have to stop." I said, "Why do you have to stop?" He said, "Because if I pursue this, the path of truth, I know everything we're doing is true." He said, I'll lose my partner. I'm going to have to leave her, or she's going to leave me. And I'm not willing to do that. So these are the kind of compromises. In English we say it's a pact with the devil, or it's a Faustian pact, to use a German reference, because Goethe wrote a book called Faust, and it was about making pacts with the devil. So every time we make a pact with the falsehood of our environment, of our family, of our friends, of our spouses, every time we make a pact with batil, with falsehood, we've made a pact with the devil. Now, this doesn't mean we have to shout out the truth all the time, because we have to be skillful about this. Another psychological story. Just checking out the time. Okay. We'll probably have to continue this for 2 or 3 sessions, actually. So, one of my teachers in psychotherapy was a guy called, he's probably long since deceased, a brilliant psychoanalyst. And he was telling us what not to do. One time he said he had a patient, they were going over his childhood. These were the days when you had a telephone on the wall in the building, a long time ago. Okay? So he had a patient, and they went over some traumatic stuff about his childhood. And the session was over, and I guess it was lunchtime, and he was going downstairs to get himself a sandwich. And he saw the patient chewing out his parents on the telephone. "Do you know how you ruined my life? Everything you did to me was wrong and traumatic, and now I have to do an expensive psychoanalysis." said, that's not the way to go about it. Once you realize the truth, first assimilate it, and then see how you're going to manage that truth or how you're going to communicate it. Okay, it doesn't mean you have to shout out all the, in French they say "te quatre vérités," shout out all the truths about someone right away. It's not the right way. So you have to be skillful about managing your authenticity. There's also stuff here by Rogers also. Today we just touched a little bit on Maslow. We could go on. This is an ocean, as Sheikh Nazim would say. How are we doing in time? Okay. 15 minutes? Yeah, what?
No, I'm just waiting.
Okay. So let's say about 20 minutes altogether. So one of the ways of figuring out how to be authentic, and we each have this issue, is to see what isn't authenticity. Okay? Who are the people, the leaders, the teachers who are not authentic? And we have the poster child. Well, on est gâté, as they say in French. We're spoiled in Canada. We have the poster child of inauthenticity. His name is Justin Trudeau. Everything he does for the effect it's going to have on the people around him. Everything he does to be liked. Okay? Everything he's, as they say in English, he's constantly playing to the audience. It's striking for me because I knew the time I didn't actually meet him, but I saw him. Anyway, I knew about his father a lot, and we watched. His father was not like that. His father, when he had something to say, the famous, you probably saw the famous interview when they said he said he was going to bring in the War Measures Act, and they said, and there was a terrorist incident here.
Yeah, just watch me.
Yeah, and he said, they said, what are you going to do, bud? He said, just watch me. And he did. He brought in the War Measures Act, he brought in the army. People still hate him for it, but his conviction was this was the way to create stability. And in the end, I think a fair historical analysis will say he was right and his son was totally wrong in terms of how he treated the truckers. But that's the difference between an authentic person who sometimes takes the risk of not being liked and an inauthentic person who's also playing to the audience. Anyone have any other ideas of it? Politics is a great place to find inauthentic people, democratic politics. Yes.
Trump isn't authentic.
Trump is authentic. He's a pain in the butt. He's has the worst character, but he's authentic. He has that to his credit. But who is inauthentic in American politics? Any ideas? Yassine, I think, is the one who follows it most closely.
Biden?
No, I wouldn't say
Obama.
Biden is inauthentic. Corrupt, maybe even mentally
Obama?
challenged, but
Obama.
yes. Obama is,
Close to.
yeah, very close to being inauthentic. Brilliant speaker, very clever guy, charming. I always felt like Obama's mother had died, and I always felt like he was kind of looking up saying, "Are you proud of me, Mom? Are you proud of me, Mom?" That's not the way to run your government.
Hillary?
Hillary is the
Yeah.
portrait child on the woman's side of inauthenticity. Can't believe anything she said. It's all strategy and manipulation. And then we have the Democrats now have become one after the other, whether it's Chuck Schumer in the Senate or Adams, what's his name? Schiff. Thank you. Or Adam Schiff in the Congress. These people are super inauthentic. I don't know, in Britain, unfortunately, inauthenticity is the default position. So this is another problem. But then you have to use a different kind of gauge to figure out who's really doing what. Personally, I think I think Tony Blair was unfairly treated, as was Prince Charles. Both of them were in very difficult situations and did their best as far as. But the Brits hate both of them generally. So, for a true or false? Yeah.
Very true.
Yeah. No, I never heard a Brit say, you know, it was really hard for Prince Charles to be with that Lady D. You know, she was beautiful, but she was a borderline personality. I mean, she was a difficult woman to be with. That's why I left. But no one seemed to understand. They all blamed him for not treating her well. Well, if you ever have a relationship with some chaotic borderline personality lady, see how far you can get by treating her well. I've had some personal experiences. Doesn't work at all. Okay, so coming back to baseline. The other thing, I think we'll leave it at this point. The other thing, in order to be authentic, you have to be self-aware. Because you can't be honest if you don't know what the truth is, right? So you have to be authentic, you have to really be aware of yourself and what is your motivation and where do you stand and what are your feelings and being aware. So awareness is a necessary precondition for authenticity. Then when you're aware, I was upset with a client recently because he was always paying late. And in the old days, I probably would have just said it straight out. But now I've learned that there are better ways of handling it. So I used this will be a subject for another session, but nonviolent communication, Marshall Rosenberg, and I just laid it out in that way that he suggests, and it passed very nicely. So we can be aware of our feelings. I was upset because it was creating some issues for my organization, and but instead of just spilling out the upset, I formulated it in a way that was acceptable for both of us, and we can learn how to do it. So let's consider this an opening, and we will reflect more, and maybe people will have comments and questions, and we will continue the discussion of authenticity. Oh yeah, we're beyond our normal time.
Just one
Okay.
brief example we can talk about next week also is inauthentic people in workplace and business movement.
Yeah, absolutely. So I see that this is a big subject, and we will continue discussing it next week, inshallah. Thank you all for attending.